I think I started off with just influencers, just building the brand through literally celebrities. So like Love Island, X on the Beach. Most people now, like, they launch a brand and it's straight into like Facebook ads, TikTok, everything like that. But it almost seems like another time, because when I launched it, the only way to really get your brand out there, so it felt to me anyway, was influencers.
Right, we're back with episode 53, I believe, of the Midnight Pod. And for the first time, I think ever, we have a 12-year-old Dalmore whiskey, which Jason has been kind enough to bring along. We're normally on the red wine, as everyone knows. So I'm going to try not to chug this, because it could go down too quick and we could end up having to finish this podcast about half an hour in. But like I was saying, we're joined with Jason Armstrong from Caliber Clothing, who we've been chatting online probably, I was going to actually say, how long has that been?
You know, 6
on and
months,
off.
Isn't it? Yeah, on and off, 6
Is it
months.
just that? I swear it's longer than that.
Maybe.
Yeah, sweet. So we've been chatting online for like a year, on and off. And I feel like I've built relationships with people in the e-commerce space through that. Like, I don't know if you replied to a story, I replied to a story, then you realise you've got loads of mutual friends.
I think originally I was watching the podcasts, and then I'd had a few friends that had gone on, people that I've spoken to in the past through e-com, and then just followed you through that naturally, just reached out just through probably stories to do with stuff in our industry, and just spoke on and off through that, really.
Yeah. And we were chatting just before you came on. I didn't realise how much of a pretty fucking mad story you've got, to be fair. I know you mentioned before that you had a good story, but I don't know. I feel like everyone says
probably
that.
Don't know. Yeah, to be fair, it's weird because, have you ever heard of a podcaster called Mike Winnett? And he does all the entrepreneur stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that.
He calls it like a bullshit backstory.
Yeah.
And I always laugh because he's one of the things he does on the entrepreneur bingo thing is he ticks off things that they say that are like, okay, that's, you know, and he gets a full house. And one of the things he says, oh, they've got a bullshit backstory. But I actually do have like quite a mad backstory. And I think from most of the guests that have kind of come on, they quite young into ecom, whereas I did a lot of other stuff before, kind of even business just in general.
He's mad.
It wasn't like obvious to me at 18, 19 that I was going to be in business. It kind of just, it happened through a result of running someone else's business and helping them. So yeah, but tell me where you want me to go from and I'll go from there.
Well, I guess you're from Birmingham originally, which is pretty evident. I mean, maybe the accent's faded a little bit. You said you live in Stoke right now.
Yeah.
Where is Stoke?
So it's literally.
I should know that. I'm northern. Is it northern?
Yeah. Do you know Staffordshire?
Yeah.
It's like.
I sound very ignorant right now.
No. It's a city by Staffordshire, or within Staffordshire, if you like. But it's the best way to describe it is it's smack bang in the middle of Manchester and Birmingham. So if I literally go on my sat nav and put in like. I looked for a Zara in Stoke before, and there was no Zara in Stoke, but I was exactly like 47 miles from the Zara in Manchester and 48 from Birmingham, so it was kind of like, so sometimes I go to Manchester, sometimes I go to Birmingham, so it's literally right in the middle. It's quite a big, it's classed as a city, but
similar to York in size, maybe.
Probably,
That's where I'm from. Yeah, I guess normally I go back to like childhood in a way. I mean, there's probably so much shit.
How long have you got?
Well, maybe just. Because obviously you said you started the brand like what, 5 years ago, you're 31 now.
2017, so I was what, 26.
So that's obviously 26 years prior to doing anything in e-com. Yeah, I suppose that is a bit different to a lot of guests. I feel like I started fucking late. Not that you're late, but it's funny because everyone these days,
they're getting.
I feel like more and more because of like Twitter and stuff.
It wasn't like
people get into stuff when they're like 3 years old.
When I started, it wasn't more. It wasn't just so. Like, I don't even think. I know I've heard you talk about you were doing Facebook ads like quite a while back, but I didn't really know about Facebook ads until like 2018, 19. I think I started off with just influencers, and just building the brand through literally celebrities. So like Love Island, X on the Beach. So but most people now, like they're getting into like. They launch a brand and it's straight into like Facebook ads, TikTok, everything like that. But when it almost seems like another time, because when I launched, we started the brand, it was the only way to really get your brand out there. So it felt to me anyway, was influencers. Yeah. Which that's actually like kind of it's come and gone, really, and it's more micro influencers or people you can't get away with using people that aren't like on point with your branding, like in terms of they either dress like your brand if you've got a clothing brand, or the message of your brand or whatever is in line with what they do on a regular basis. Whereas before, because of Instagram used to be, the algorithm didn't exist, and you could get literally like it was just, the feed was just time, you know, when like someone posted 2 minutes ago, it'd be a top of the feed. The reach was so powerful that even if they didn't quite fall in line with your message or didn't wear your products all the time, just one post would get all your sales for like a couple of weeks or a week, and you'd be able to monitor that through a discount code or whatever. And like now people use obviously SMS, email, Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, but literally when I first started, it was like Hera. It was just all influencers.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to go into loads of stuff with that, but I guess to cover first ground, prior to that, then go back a little bit. I guess normally from like sort of school, teenage years, a bit beyond there, it's probably a mad story. So
yeah,
maybe skip up to some of the more palatable bits.
Okay,
and
so
just give us a chronological run through.
I was in foster care.
Oh shit, that's another thing I didn't know. Yeah,
most people don't know, because I think in the early years I purposely didn't tell people because they treat you different. They'd either feel sorry for you, and it wasn't like it's just something you just bring up, but certain scenarios you didn't really have a choice to speak about it. Like I've lived with like a black family, so when we go to parents' evening, it's pretty obvious that they're not your mum and dad. So then people then ask questions like that, or you might be put with an older couple who are like, "Is that your nan and granddad? Where's your mum and dad?" So, but other than that, I wouldn't mention it just because I just want the big thing is when you're raised in that way, all you want is to be treated normal. You don't want like this sympathy, and you don't want to. You just kind of want to just go out and just crack on and just play with your friends and whatever, and just go to school. So for years and years and years, I just didn't tell people, even like close friends that I'd gone to school with for years didn't know. Especially when I got put with a family that looked more like they could be your parents. People didn't ask the question then.
How often did that change? Like parents?
So I got put into care when I was 5 or 6. I can't remember the exact age. It was like about then. And I actually had the record for the most moves of like 22 from my borough, to the point where I got moved down to Cornwall because no one in Birmingham would have me. So I moved around like loads of areas within like West Midlands, like Walsall, Dudley, West Brom, Birmingham, and it got to a point where when you're in the system, if you was to go to a new carer, you'd have like a record of your behaviour and obviously what you've been like at your previous carers, school records and that, a bit of like a CV for that carer to go right, because they potentially, a lot of them still have their own kids at home and they foster with their own kids, so they don't want to bring a destructive kid into their home if it's going to cause trouble with their own children who's a similar age. So they'd have like your records would be shown to carers stating why they're moving you on, or you know, your past and your history and stuff like that. And it got to the point where no one in Birmingham would have me, and it was close to me going into like a children's home. And then they ended up, obviously I was too young at the time to realise why or the main things, but what ended up happening was I moved to Cornwall, and it was basically based off no one in Birmingham would have me due to my record of moving around so much and just being disruptive, getting kicked out of schools, just fighting, getting into trouble a lot. And the problem is as well, it's like a snowball effect. Once you move to a new area, it's very hard to fit in with new kids because they're like, well, who are you and where have you come from? And even just like going back as a kid, moving 5 miles would be massive. Like it's not like now where you're adults and you've got cars and stuff and you're 2 minutes down the road from someone. If you move 5-6 miles away, you'd be changing school, you'd be a new circle of friends off your estate. Who are you? Why have you moved? Like, where's your brothers and sisters? You've got no one to like put you in either. Like, do you know what I mean? Like an older brother or a friend. Oh yeah, he's sound he is. So you're just completely starting over again, and it's hard work. And so settling once you start to move, it's kind of like it becomes a bit of a roller coaster from there to really get settled. And different carers have different rules and different, you know, one carer will want you to do one certain thing or be in at one certain time, then you get moved on and they're telling you to come in an hour early, and it's just hard work. Whereas if you've got your parents, it's just the same all the time. It's that consistency. So once you start to move, it just happens where you just you can just all of a sudden be moving around the system. So I got moved down to Cornwall, and to be fair, it was amazing. Like the carers I I recently went and visited them. Well, about 3-4 years ago, I went and visited them, and it was amazing. And I hadn't seen them for years. And I lived down there for 3 years. And then eventually I got moved back up to Birmingham because my mum had come down and tried to get me adopted. And the carers had basically said, listen, he can't be adopted because he's too old. He knows of his family. But that was kind of like her input, as I don't really want to see him again. But my nan was a massive part of me, like, you know, of my life. Both my nans. My other nan passed away in 2007, but my current nan, the nan that I'm talking about now, is still alive now, and she basically fought to get me back up to Birmingham because she felt like I was losing my identity. After being down there 3 years, I had like the accent, and it was too far to travel to come back and visit family.
Enough reason to go back.
Yeah, it's too far to come back and visit family and friends. So she tried to adopt me, my nan did, but at the time, she was living in Blackpool, and she used to come down to like Cornwall. It's like a 9-hour coach journey, literally from one end of the country to the other. And she wanted to adopt me. But going back to what I was saying before about like, you just want to feel normal. I knew that if I go back up to my nan and granddad's, people are going to ask when I go to parents' evening, whatever like that, or when they knock on for you, who are they? Like, they're obviously too old to be your mum and dad. So I just wanted to kind of be with someone that looked like they could be my mum and dad, so the question wouldn't come up. So we tried it for like a little while, and I basically just like wouldn't settle and just said I don't want to be adopted. So my nan kind of managed to just at least get me back into Birmingham. So I came back up to Birmingham, went with one carer that didn't work out for a couple of years, and then went to another carer at the age of 14 and stayed there until I joined the Marines at 18. But then I would, on leave, come back to them anyway. So like I basically lived there from 14 to like 21, 2021, until I moved out and got my own place. And then I still see them now, still see their sons, and they're like my brothers and stuff like that. So I had that like, and they were of an age where they had kids the same age as me, so it felt, not only have they got the same accent as me, but they look like they could be my mum and dad. So if you go out shopping in Asda and whatever, you haven't got people looking at you weird because you're with parents that are a lot older than you, or black carers, and you're white, and they're people, you know, I used to go to a Pentecostal church every week, and I'd be the only white person there. And straight, the kids don't understand. They're like, why are you here? Who's your mum and dad? So you straight away, you're on the back foot with people, and you're thinking, well, I've known this person 2 minutes. Do I really want to tell them my life story? And do they even really want to hear it? So you find yourself just like avoiding like conversations and stuff like that. So something as being just being with the people that look like they could be your parents was a massive thing, really. So once I got that, I started to settle back in my area, and that's me up to from 14 to 18, 19. I lived there, and I still see them now. So that was my childhood, really. It's moved around loads, you know, different people, different parents, different environments.
Did you go to uni?
No, college. I went to college. And the reason I went to college was, I was speaking about it earlier, when I tried to join the Marines at 16, I was too small. So I prolonged it till I was 18 just to put weight on. And even then I struggled. So
you were planning to go to the Marines before you went to college anyway?
Soon, I was in the cadets at school, the Army cadets, and all I wanted to do was join the military. And when I went down to Cornwall, I'd been in the Marine cadets down there, so that's where the Marine thing was always on my mind. And I went away for a week with school, and did an Army Look at Life course. And my results from running and press-ups and sit-ups were so good that they recommend that I join the Marines or the Paras, and just said your run times are amazing. You clearly very physically fit.
Do you ever do a marathon?
Never, no.
Yeah.
Cross country was about the most I've got to.
Yeah, I just do cross country.
Did a lot of long runs, like 10-mile runs and stuff like that. And used to do crazy amounts of football and stuff as well, where we just always running stuff like that. And did cross country in the cadets, did cross country at school, 1800 meters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I knew from when I was at school that that's what I wanted to do, but I wasn't heavy enough. You had to be 56 kilograms to join the Marines, which is literally like my left leg now. And so what I did was I went to college, did sports and fitness for 2 years. And the funny thing is, I used to have a lot of issues in school, and I used to get kicked out. I've been to pupil referral units. I've been to 2 high schools, multiple primary schools. Like, in the lessons that I enjoyed, I was bang on, and the teachers would love me. But in lessons that I didn't enjoy, I was disruptive, getting kicked out. I'm only really interested in doing stuff I'm interested in doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I really struggle to have any interest in something that's just, and I just think this is pointless. Why am I learning algebra?
That's how I feel day to day running a business when all I want to do is make movies.
This is the thing that I've seen this with the business as well. Like, I'm massively into like content creation, that side of things, but like the corporate side of things, it's like, it's a bit of a like, oh, okay, but it's you've got to be able to do both. But obviously, if you can always employ people to do certain jobs that you're not strong enough, and you really want to do that anyway, because that frees you up to do what you're actually really good at, and obviously where your skills are gonna thrive, really. But in school, you obviously don't have a choice, and you've got to do. It's weird because it's like I wasn't interested in business at the age of 18, 19, but there's a lot of like similarities to like being an entrepreneur to like me being a kid. Like, I didn't want to do the same stuff that everyone else did, and I couldn't see the point in doing it, and I only wanted to do the lessons that I enjoyed. Dressing the same as everyone, turning up at the same time as everyone, doing the same lessons. I always used to like kind of do my own thing. The lessons that I picked for my GCSEs, because in the last 2 years of school you get to choose your own lessons, I did well in them, and I enjoyed them, and I got some GCSEs. And then when I went to college, not an issue. Do you know what I mean? Distinctions, because it was something that I'd chosen. Yeah. And I enjoyed doing it. So, you know, there wasn't any issues. I wasn't obviously getting in trouble or anything like that. And it was very apparent to me that I've got to do something that I want to do. Do you know what I mean? And obviously the Marines, and when I had to come out of the Marines, when I had to leave the Marines, it was like, fucking hell, what do I do now? And it's doing jobs and stuff that I'm not really interested in. So
did you go into the Marines? Or you mentioned before you tried to get into Marines and it didn't work?
So I joined the Marines at 18 and did 2 years, year and a half, 2 years in there. Basically, I got to week 26. There's 32 weeks. And I had a lot of issues with my shins, compartment syndrome, so they put me into what's called Hunter Troop, which is like a rehabilitation troop. If you've broken an ankle in training, you'll go into Hunter Troop, and then they rehabilitate you, and they put you back into the troop closest to the week you came out, because each troop, I think they're in like 4-week installments. So like when you start, 4 weeks time, another troop will start, so you can get back troops or through injury and stuff like that. And if you've got an injury, they'll pull you out, rehabilitate you, and put you back in. So that was the idea. That I got to week 26 and basically sat down, had a conversation with like the sergeant and stuff like that, and they said, obviously it's causing you problems. We're going to come to the phase of like the commando test now, to give you the best chance to kind of get through that. Let's put you into Hunter Troop and see if we can just get some, you know. I think I got fitted with like some special soles and stuff to kind of like put an arch in my running, because I realised I was quite flat-footed, and that was the impact of that wasn't helping. And they tried everything they could, but ultimately, like, my shins were just fucked. And
so you end up leaving?
I had a conversation where I'd passed all my tests to get back into my troop, but they knew that further down the line it would be with the 30-mile yomp coming up over Dartmoor and stuff like that, and the speed marches, it was going to be an issue. So with me only being 18 and the entry level being up to 32, there was like, leave, see if you can get something done about it. It won't be on your record if you choose to leave yourself, and you can always leave, you know, join at a later date, or go and join another force like, you know, the Navy or the Army or something like that. If we medically discharge you and it's on your record, you'll get a payout, but you'll never be able to join again as such. So I opted just to leave on my own accord, and I did try to rejoin about a year later, but it took so long to get my medical records from Portsmouth up to Glasgow, because I was going to join the Army, and that's where where they'd have to send my, because once you've previously served, they want to know why you left, and it'll be on record. And it took so long getting my records up to Glasgow that I ended up just thinking, I've got to just start moving on and just looking at other things to do. So with me obviously coming out of the Marine, stuff like that, it's not really like a transferable skill where you've been training for the last 26 weeks to use rifles, run around an assault course, and okay, great, you can run a mile and a half in 7 minutes, but you know, where's your skill set as such?
Yeah.
So, obviously if you pass out you get a trade and such, but so I had a few friends who'd gone on to they'd either previously already been in the Marines, or lads that had gone on to pass out, and they had a lot of contacts within security, so I ended up going into security. I was doing like bodyguarding, close protection. I worked for Matchroom Boxing, doing doing all the boxing, ringside security.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. So
Any big fights?
loads, yeah. Wembley, Joshua, Kelbrook.
Oh, sick.
We didn't have Tyson Fury. We did have him for a little bit. Well, didn't have any of his fights exactly, but he was with Hennessy Sports, who were Channel 5. So under Matchroom, we were obviously Sky Sports, company called SAUK, owned by Simon. So we had the contract for Matchroom, so we did all the fights every weekend. O2 Arena, met Anthony Joshua multiple times, loads of boxers. Kelbrook, did the Frochgroves fight at Wembley. Did loads. I've got like, you get like a lanyard with a thing, and I must have like 50 of them.
Yeah.
At home. Did all of Anthony Joshua's like first 10 fights. Luke Campbell, loads, yeah. Tony Bellew at Everton when he won the world title, done that. So yeah, that was good. And then the company that we were subcontracts to work for, the company that had the contract with Matchroom. So my actual original company, we mainly focused on doing nightclubs, doors, festivals, concerts. A lot of it was weekend-based work, so the money wasn't great. You'd have like Friday, Saturday, some Sunday daytime events, but it'd be quiet for the week, and it'd be busy for the summer, then more quiet for the winter. So the money, although people see me on TV every week, and it was like, oh, you must be killing it. You're working on TV. You'd get picked up from your office at 10 o'clock, from their office at 10 o'clock in the morning to go down to London. You'd get to the venue like a couple of hours early. It would start at 2 o'clock, go live on TV at 3, and then go off TV about 10, and you then have like a debrief at 11, and then you'd be back in the bus to come back to Birmingham at like 12 and get home for like 2-3 in the morning. And for the whole day, you only get paid for when the show goes live to when it finishes. So from 3 o'clock, or from when you get there and you have your brief and that, from like 2 till 11, you get like 80 quid. And you're out your house 16 hours a day. But people would do it because they see it as a privilege to obviously be around these celebrities, be on TV, and it is good for your CV, where if you want to go off and, extend your career in security or go and get your CP badges, you can then go, well, I've looked after, and you've got all the photos to prove it because you're on TV. You can you could pause it and screenshot yourself on TV.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, but it was good. It was interesting, but I got to a point where I could earn the same amount on a nightclub door on a Saturday night for 4 hours work, be in my hometown and be back in bed basically the same time I would be if I'd left at 10 in the morning to go and work in London for the same amount of money. So eventually that's why I stopped doing it, and then So
how long did you do that until you started the brand? Or was there other jobs up to that point?
So I did security for 8 years. And I was doing security when I started the brand. The actual whole reason, the brand idea, a big part of the reason the brand idea came about was because of security. So going back to, I was only working weekends. I got a regular job in Watches of Switzerland, 6-7 days a week, and that's played a massive part in me.
Just come a bit closer to that mic, by the way. Just shuffle that. Yeah.
Is that right? A massive part of me I've always been ambitious. Like, I could have joined the army, but I went for the Marines. I've always liked doing something that everyone else isn't doing. All my friends were being plumbers, carpenters, and I was going off to go in the Marines, and a lot of them were like, what the hell's the Marines? And I'd come back on my leave, and I've jumped out of Chinook helicopters, and they've been in JJB stacking shelves. So like, I've always liked the idea of like doing something different and follow my own path. When I was working in Watches Switzerland, you're surrounded by a lot of like wealthy people, ambitious people are coming in my age and buying 10, 20 grand Rolexes, and it opened my eyes up to kind of go, what are they doing that I'm not? Do you know what I mean? And it just kind of like set something off in my head. And also working around like a lot of the lads that are in the showroom, they were very passionate and ambitious, and a lot of them, were working towards saving up for a Rolex or to buy a Rolex. And
so you working security there?
I was working security there. And the general manager, who I still speak to this day, Lloyd Morgan, he's very well known in Birmingham. Like, he had a lot of advice. He was like a mentor to me, and it just opened my eyes up to like business and wealth and stuff like that. So it kind of, the seed started for Caliber in that shop, just in terms of like, there's more to life than just, do you know what I mean? Just,
I think everyone has maybe they're first exposed to what's possible. I had that when I did a work experience in London when I was 19. Yeah. And I didn't know what an entrepreneur was before that. really.
Yeah.
Then
was the
you
same
meet
for me.
blokes driving like Rolls Royces and shit.
Yeah.
I was like, hold on, these guys aren't footballers or celebrities. How are they making money?
I remember one of the guys came in. I'll never forget. He was what you'd call a chav, if you like.
Yeah.
And you'd look at him and you'd think he hasn't got any money.
Mm.
You come to realise like a lot of the people that you think don't have anything have a lot more than sometimes the people that look
Yeah,
like they
don't
do.
judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, and thing is as well, they feel like they've got nothing to prove. It's you can if they just pop out that day and they know they've got to go to the gym later, they're not gonna like they're just in the tracksuit or whatever. It's more circumstantial. But this guy came in and he bought a 50 grand AP, and I'd been chatting to him half an hour before, and no one had come up to him and even asked him if he wanted to because usually if you walk in they come straight over to you, and he was very humble, just chatting away to me, and they actually thought I knew him because of how much he was speaking. He used to be a doorman, that's why he was speaking to me, and he set up his own like electronic gate company, and he was making millions, and he'd already got an AP on, but it was you couldn't really see it unless you properly looked. And he spent like 50 grand on a watch that day, and every time he come in, because I'd spoken to him, he just would speak to me for ages, and you start to kind of speak to people in there and think to yourself like, they're just regular people, but they work hard and they've got ambition and whatever, and it's like you think to yourself, well, I could do something. Do you know what I mean? It's just finding what it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
But there's more of an obvious reason how Calibre started. So part of it was being in and around that shop and being around people who was obviously doing really well for themselves. But I was working 5-6 days a week at the watch shop, and then I was working my weekends at a gym, and a guy used to come in and he used to have his own meal prep company, and we got speaking loads, and I started to buy his meals.
Yeah.
And they came in the one day and he said, who runs the gym's social media? And I was like, oh, it's me. And he's like, mate, that's wicked. Like, he's like, you do all that yourself, the Instagram, the Facebook? I was like, yeah. He's like, would you do it for me and I'll pay you? And I was like, well, I actually enjoy doing it. I said, I'll do it for free.
Yeah.
And I'll have the meals that I buy and just give me the meals for free.
Yeah.
So I started to build his social media for him.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it almost happened without me even realising it was happening before. I had a massive passion for bodybuilding. I always have since I was 5-6 years of age. I was obsessed with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Stallone. Like I was buying Flex magazines as a kid.
Yeah,
and
classic.
then just absolute beasts on the magazine. My mates are buying Beanos and Dandies, and I'm buying Flex magazines. And I'm like, why are you buying that, you weirdo? I was obsessed with anyone that was just big and muscly, and I was like, I've always loved bodybuilding. I've always loved Arnold Schwarzenegger. So been into fitness and training my whole life basically, and I've always been drawn towards like those physiques, and that's kind of what led me to working in that gym, because I was living in the gym anyway, and I helped him out one day, the guy who owned the gym, and he asked me if I'd help out a few times and just go behind the desk as such, and it just ended up becoming like an ongoing thing. So I got really friendly with this guy who was basically, he was a stockist in the gym with his meal prep company. So he'd have like a fridge with all his meals in, and he'd just come in every week and just fill them back up as people bought them. And we got speaking, and I ended up taking over his social media from seeing what I'd done with the gym social media. And going back to my passion with bodybuilding, I already knew who all the athletes were. I'd been to Body Power in 2014, 15, 16. I knew all Ryan Terry. I knew everyone. I knew like inside out.
I used to be mad into all that stuff. I used to want to be a fitness model when I was like 17.
I went through that phase, and I was like, there's a photographer called Giles Crofter, and he used to shoot.
I recognise the name. Yeah.
He used to shoot like all the men's physique guys, not the massive guys, but mainly men's physique. Yeah. And I was like, before Ecom came along, my YouTube time would be like Rich Piana. Yeah. And I used to love watching. I used to watch the Ben and Jerry's down him all the time.
Matt Ogus was the OG.
Matt Ogus, yeah.
And Chris Lovato, all that.
Chris Lovato. I used
Jeff
to
Side.
Bradley Martin, all those lot. And I used to, there wasn't really, and there still isn't massively now, but like Ecom on YouTube, but there's loads of bodybuilding, like you talk about the Gymshark early days, how they got Jeff Sade and all them people involved, but there was a big bodybuilding community on YouTube, and I used my pastime that I now used to watch, or I have done for like the last few years or whatever, watching podcasts, was it wasn't really such as podcasts. It was just more like documenting. Like Rich Piano would just film himself going to the gym, his routine, his day. You know what I mean? And that's what I used to watch as like my pastime. Do you know what I mean? I never really was massively into like watching Coronation Street or EastEnders or soaps or TV. I've never liked the idea of
Coronation Street is a classic.
And it was always a bit of a fear of mine. Subconsciously, I used to say to my missus, my worst fear in life is being a Dave, coming home with my tea on my lap after working a job I hate, watching Coronation Street and
sadly,
going to bed.
That's a large proportion of the country.
And I just thought, well, even though I'm not where I want to be in life, I don't want my habits to match up to that. So rather than do that, I'd go to the gym and I'd just watch vlogs and stuff.
Yeah.
So I already, when he asked me to take over the social media, I had a massive knowledge base on like, okay, I know I can blow this up just from putting it in the right people's hands. And we already had people that would come to this gym that I had good relationships with that had a big social media presence. And I knew that I could get them. I could get them on some whiskey.
Yeah, he loves a drink.
I knew I could get them to promote the brand as a favour to me.
Yeah.
So I took over his social media within like 3-4 months, doubled the following. Got like athletes posting about it, got them on. It was quite easy to negotiate with them because they didn't really want pay and they wanted the food, like because it's genuinely like made their life easier, and it was what they ate anyway. They meal prepped themselves, so it was really like, now if you go and get an influencer, they want the earth before they even do anything for you, and they want to charge you a separate portion of fee just to do the story, whereas it should come hand in hand really. I mean obviously you know whatever, but back then we had like loads. We had like 20 influencers, networking with all of those people, and I ended up massively blowing up his Instagram. And I stood in the watch shop the one day, and I was just thinking to myself, and I thought, I want to do my own thing now. And I thought, I've built someone else's business up. I'm running his whole social media, speaking to all the bodybuilders, organising all the posts, building up the Facebook. And I thought, it's time to do something for myself now. What am I interested in? And I've always liked fashion. I've always been interested in dressing nice, taking pride in my appearance and clothing. I'm not going to lie and turn around and say like, you know, I'm obsessed with it and I went to designer school or, you know, fashion design or anything like that. But I've always took pride in my appearance and always, you know, liked buying new clothes and always been interested in dressing well and taking pride in my appearance. I think it goes hand in hand with training, going to the gym, getting your hair cut weekly, little thing, you know what I mean?
I need to get my hair cut more often. I'm like I used to be like every month, then it was every 2 weeks, and it's still not enough. I get a fade now. It's like fucking hell.
I was religiously like every week, but
I need it again. I had it 2 days ago.
My barber will probably watch this, but he's an absolute nightmare. You'll get your hair cut, you'll walk out to go and book again with him because he does it on like a website and app, and he's fully booked for like 3-4 weeks. So you're having to like, you almost need to book like 3 or 4 slots just to keep going. So
I'm the exact same.
But and I'm not like I'm quite spontaneous. I'll go, right, I need my haircut today, and I like, you know, so I don't really plan like 3-4 weeks in advance to go, right, I'll book in. So sometimes I used to get my haircut weekly, but since I've been with him, it's been more like 2-3 weekly now, just because I can't. I'm not on it enough to make sure that I book on time.
I feel like I need another trim now. You got me self-conscious about this fade. It's growing too quick.
It always grows. The thing is, because you have it so short on the sides, it always, before you know it always looks a bit scruffy then.
So true.
That's a good length, to be fair. But yeah, so I was always interested in fashion and clothing, and so I got speaking to one of the lads, and we had a magazine in the shop called Caliber, but spelt with a C.
Oh really?
It's a watch magazine called Caliber. Hope they don't try and sue me now.
Nah, it'd be alright.
But and I liked the name, and I knew what the name meant, so I'd heard of the term. I don't think they've used it as. It's spelt differently to the word that the reason why the brand's called what it actually is. The actual reason behind why I've called it this is I spotted the word caliber on the magazine, but I always liked, you know, when you go like, I was a high caliber footballer. Yeah. That's what the brand means. High quality, distinction, merit. That's where it came from.
Yeah, it's a good name actually.
And so I looked into it and I realised it was trademarked, spelt differently with a C. So I decided to spell it with a K, and then I could own the trademark. So that's so it became its own word then as such. So some people don't really know that it's linked to like high caliber footballer. So they'll go, oh, what does it mean? And then when I tell them, oh, it actually means that, they're like, oh, do you know what I mean? And it kind of links in with the brand anyway. So so I thought of the name for the brand in the shop, and I thought, okay, well, I've built up his e-com brand selling meal prep. Time to do my own thing. So I started to source manufacturers. And knew nothing. There was no like, 2016, I thought of the idea. Back then, it was very like there weren't loads of brands about. There wasn't really anyone you could kind of reach out and like a guru or courses or anything like that. Not that I knew of anyway. And I literally just went on to other clothing brand pages that were about, looked through who they followed, and found a couple of manufacturers that way. But some of them would be following thousands. So I was like, do you know what I mean? Just looking through, a couple of days, and I found a couple of manufacturers, messaged them, and it just so happened that they'd made for a couple of these brands and they could prove it with their production.
Yeah.
But the first company I used was going out of business, and I spent £1,000 on 3 different t-shirts, and had got a logo made by a friend who did logos and websites. Obviously got the name, and it wasn't like it was just the logo was the name as such. So I got that made up pretty quickly, and the idea was just to get it on t-shirts, very much how it used to be, and just put it on celebrities and just get it out there and just make sure that it was good quality t-shirts, but just market it and be creative with the photo shoots and stuff, and make it look a certain way. And that was kind of as much as I'd kind of really looked into it. And I spoke to a factory. They sent over the logo and the designs I wanted. My friend who does logos, he could do like tech packs as well. Showed me the photos, like bang on, fine. Like paid £1,000, sent them over. When I opened the boxes, the top t-shirts that I'd been shown were like on top. When I pulled them off, the rest were like this big. They were like kid-sized t-shirts.
Like pure scam or just an error?
Pure scam to me. Like, so when I messaged him and saying like, what the hell? Like they're all way too small. I can't sell these. Just got blocked instantly.
That happened to James from
I think it happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I've had similar
This is why when you
experiences.
speak to anyone who owns a clothing brand and you say to them it's a bit of a taboo subject, oh, who's your factory? People are very like naive that they're going to just turn it over to them, because it's almost like, if you've known what I've got, the golden key. If you've known what I've gone through to get this factory and how much money I've spent trial and error and sampling, I can't just give it you. Do you know what I mean? Because for 2 reasons, I might even like you, but I almost feel like you need to go through what I've gone to know whether you're cut out for it, because it's almost like all those hurdles are like challenges that are like, are you cut out for the shit that's going to come your way, because it's going to come. And if I just give you this nice factory now, when their lead times or they're not replying to your WhatsApp, you'll think they're the worst person in the world, but you actually realise it's quite normal. And the biggest battle is the quality of the clothing and it turning up on time. All the other stuff is just quite normal, but you almost have to go through the shit to realise how good a decent factory is. So I don't know actually how much use it would be giving someone the best factory possible straight away. One, the MOQ entry would be too high for them anyway, probably to afford, because a decent factory won't bother with like 50s. They'll want like hundreds at least, and they want your minimum order to be 5-6 grand or whatever for them to even put the staff on your projects, taking off bigger brands. So that it's not really like going to be any. It's not, if you've built yourself up to a decent factory and someone comes along to you, they're going to have deep pockets just to work with that factory. But also, if they'd have known what you've gone through to get to that factory, you can't just. If it's someone you're really close to and stuff like that, and it's a net benefit and something's going to come back your way, that's fine. But that has to be organic, and either has to be your friend, or you've been speaking for a while, and you're giving them something and they're giving you something. Do you know what I mean? You're not just going to go around to random people and just give out, because what's stopping them copying your design and having more money to market it and overtaking you as well? Yeah. So it's it's really hard to find a good factory. And the first one I got burnt, but it didn't put me off. I just looked and found another factory, and this time I make a video. I only paid 50% up front. Made a video of all the stuff once it was finished for them to get the other 50%. You live and learn, and then
so many things like that I've done.
Then it came over. Got a model that I knew was popular at the time, and got a photographer. Got the images done. Built the website on Shopify. Just did it myself. It's very user friendly. Shopify. Just literally did it all myself, put the images up in there with my friend who did the logo, the help of him, just doing little bits of coding and stuff like that. And then just basically a lot of the influence that I'd already worked with for the meal prep company, I'd already kind of said to him, I'm thinking of setting up my own thing, would you do me a post on launch day? And because I'd built up good relationships with them and stuff like that over the time, and some of them I'd met at Body Power, they were like, yeah, sound, no problem at all. Back then it wasn't so like, you could get people to do stuff for free for you. It wasn't so monetized. Do you know what I mean? If they liked your product, they would sometimes just do it on a gifting basis. So they was like, send us some clothes out and I'll happily promote you. So on launch day, that's what I did. I got as many influencers as possible to just drive traffic to the website, and that was 2017 June. Got launch of like 2 hoodies, 3 t-shirts, Shopify store, had a launch date, got all the influencers to post, and that was it. That was the start of Calibre.
How did that go?
Did 1 sale in 24 hours.
Really?
Did one had loads of traffic.
Always the classic story.
Yeah, I'm not even going to lie. The first month we launched on I think it was like the 13th of June. Did like 2.5, 3 grand the first month. It cost me 10 grand to set the brand up.
Yeah.
9,800, something like that. So it was about 10 grand. I'd saved up £15,000, and I basically spent 9 grand on clothing, the website, the photo shoot, the model's fee, and then had like 5 grand set aside for marketing, and paying influencers, because I knew that because of already doing my friend's social media and knowing the importance of influencers, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good your product is, if no one sees it, no one's buying it. So you have to get eyes to your website. So I knew that it's pointless launching a brand, and no matter how good the quality of the clothing is, if you're not going to have money set aside to pay people to bring eyes to your store. So I know some people speak to me now and they've spent their whole money on product, but they've got no money for marketing. They think that word of mouth's going to do the trick, and it's not like they're an influencer or anything like that, where they can drive traffic through word of mouth or anything like that. It's, you might get a few people buying it first, but that soon dies off, and they're not going to be return customers of thousands of pounds. You have to have a strategy in place to either market the brand through influencers, or obviously now it's all Facebook ads, paid ads, whatever. But yeah, so I'd set aside 5 grand to basically just pay influencers to get to my website, to drive traffic to my website. And then the second month did like 5-6 grand, then 10-15 grand, and then within like 3 months I'd made my money back, and I was like, okay, I've got something here. And I never forget the first time I set aside the money to invest in the brand. I had a conversation with a friend, and they said to me, at the time I was renting an apartment, and they said, 10 grand, you could have got a mortgage of that. And my response to them was, if the brand goes how I think it will, the least of my worries will be getting a mortgage.
Yeah.
That people think so, and they think like it's either or. Like if you spend this money on that, you're not going to be able to do that. They don't think like, well,
that's just standard civilian mindset,
yeah, massive,
for lack of a better term. It's just I've had the same conversation with people over the years. It's like the biggest risk, taking no risk, isn't it? You're never going to back yourself. You're never going to do anything.
What's money anyway? It's a number in the bank at the end of the day, and as long as you can afford to do your daily things anyway, why not? You're only here once. So what if the brand fails and you get a mortgage free too? I've got a mortgage now anyway, so I did it anyway.
Yeah.
People are very like small-minded, where they go, well, you could have got a mortgage. I will get a mortgage. I will do it anyway.
Do you know what's interesting about that? Because I don't know if you're the same now, but I mean, all my mates now and have been for years are entrepreneurs, and just we all think the same, and that's why we're mates. But like, you forget that I come from a normal background. Like even my own brother, like he'll speak like that. He's just recently bought a house, and like
this has been a real
talking about mortgages and shit, and and I'm fucking saying, well, I'm going to build this business, sell it, and fucking, but all this shit. It's just we view the world differently, because that's something he would speak about with his mates, and they'd be like, how are you getting a mortgage or shit? Whereas me and my mates, we speak about how we get into 100
million. You don't even
have
to justify or explain it. Like, this is the thing as well.
Different conversation.
I found myself, as I've got older, I don't hang around with any of my old friends. I can't be around my family as much, because everything's small talk, everything's small thoughts. And the thing is, you'll never speak to an entrepreneur. His answer to me would have been, fucking great, should have done it 2 years ago. Or, great, well done. That £10,000 going to potentially yield you millions or whatever. You speak to your family and they'll be, oh, you're taking too much of a risk. Oh, why have you done that? Oh, how silly that is. You could have done this, you could have done that. You'll have that conversation with them until they see you successful. Once they see that you're absolutely, they'll go, oh, okay, you did the right thing. But until you've done that, even on the journey where you're being quite successful, because it's kind of behind closed doors and they don't see the warehouse or anything like that, they're still subconsciously thinking, well, it hasn't paid off yet. And but you come to realise that if you want business advice, speak to business people. Don't speak 100%. To your family. There's no point speaking to
advice off people that aren't successful
and tell him you're going to take a massive risk in investing in a brand, because if he was on that same wavelength, he'd probably he'd already done the same thing, or you know what I mean. That there was a reason why those people are doing 9-to-5 jobs. They have a 9-to-5 mindset. Sometimes it's circumstantial, where they're just not at the age yet where they've got to the entrepreneurial level, or they haven't saved up enough money. So those people will go on to do those things. Most of us start off like that anyway. But a lot of the people that are doing those jobs, they don't think like we do. And as you start to kind of get older, you realise you're wasting your time even justifying to them that why you've made that risk, or because if you speak to an entrepreneur, he wouldn't even question that. He would just be like, fair play, like, what's the brand called? Do you know what I mean? They won't be saying, oh, you've took a massive risk there. And so 2017-18 streetwear brand, basically used loads of influencers. Predominantly hoodies, t-shirts, went into caps and jeans, and the basic model of the brand was good quality clothing and just get it on influencers. Very similar to Hera. It was of that
Hera's
age
a good example.
It was of that age, and it's kind of funny now because obviously the guy who's obviously a big part of my brand now owns Hera.
Yeah, fuck, I forgot about that. I need to get Ash on the podcast, actually, because I used to follow him religiously when I was maybe 21, when Hera was starting. I know he's no longer involved in it for X, Y, and Z reasons, but yeah, I think that'd be an interesting pod. So
it was basically based around getting it on influencers with big followings, Love Island people. Yeah. Had connections through obviously athletes and bodybuilders and stuff like that, and we wouldn't just use bodybuilders, we'd use anyone with like a big social media presence. So launched, put it on as many influencers as possible, and that was basically just the model of the brand: get good quality clothing on famous people and get as much traffic to the website as possible. And it was a streetwear brand. We had a lot of independents come to us and want to stock us. I always avoided it. We had Foot Asylum come to us and want to stock us, and I turned that down. And effectively, I didn't realise, it sounds silly, but I didn't realise it was as... The terminology that I can use that you'll understand was a spice brand, because I know you've mentioned it. Yeah. And it started to become that, and I never... A lot of brands were in that space, innit, back then. When I launched, we had Fresh Couture, Nimes, Pre-London, Hera. You obviously had Six Silk, Gym Kings, Be Inspired. Six Silk was still massive, aren't they? They're probably the only one, well, not the only one, but one of the ones that has gone beyond that. I don't think people realise how big they are, so I actually... They're mad in Spain, aren't they? I have a really good relationship with the owner, Tomo. He's getting on the pod as well. Yeah, he would come on through me asking him. Have to set that up. Yeah, definitely. So he actually bought me like a £300 gift for my baby's, when my baby was born, a rocking chair. Oh really? Yeah. So he's actually ex-army. So I think I've been up to the offices in Leeds. That's where they're based. They're from Scunthorpe, but their offices are in Leeds for Six Silk. And he's a really nice guy, very humble. Never talks about money. Never posts about money. You wouldn't know that he owns a Lamborghini. It's never been posted on his social media. Yeah. Just a very genuine, nice guy. I don't know the other two lads. There's three lads that set up the brand, but me and Tomo speak a lot, and I think because obviously me being ex-military and a lot of my family being ex-military, he's kind of drawn towards me through that. He invited me to their offices, and I don't think people realise, like, they're turning over 100 million a year. Really? Yeah. Fucking hell. I didn't realise that. Yeah, they're massive in Spain. They're massive in I thought Brazil. Spain. I've seen like Messi posting with them. South America. I went to Barcelona and I've seen people wearing Six Silk everywhere. Very true. You went to the new camp and there was people wearing them everywhere, and obviously they did the collaboration with Dani Alves. I saw that to enhance that, and they did it with Messi. But when I first started, they were the kind of brands that were almost like the blueprint. There wasn't the Cole Buxtons that there is now, and the Represent was always around, I think, but I didn't know of them back then. And a lot of them, they use like the Leon Scotts, the Stephen James, all the same models, and it was kind of like that was the blueprint. You get a good product, get a name and just stick it on them, and make sure you shoot in cool locations, and that was almost just that was all you really thought of it. Really, it wasn't really like, it's always about the quality of the clothing, but it was more so just about product placements. And a year and a half, 2 years in 2018, I almost kind of stepped back and looked at the brand and went, this isn't what I want.
Mm.
Foot Asylum were coming to me, and I didn't want to be, you know, just a colourful hoodie with a logo on. I wanted it to be more
refined,
more like Reese, more contemporary, more. I had this big thing I used to say to people, like, we used to price our t-shirts at 45, 50 quid, quite expensive. And one of the main reasons why I used to do that was I used to say to customers sometimes, protecting the brand for me, I said, if you spend 45, 50 quid on a t-shirt, you're not going to go and wear it in the gym, you're going to wear it to a bar.
Yeah.
Because there's a sense of like, oh, I've spent quite a bit of money on this t-shirt, like I'm going to wear it for a nice occasion, or
yeah, that's
like,
very true.
So I was already kind of doing things that would almost, that's now like, I can understand now why I was doing that, and I didn't want people wearing my stuff down skate parks or in gyms. I wanted people to go out on a night out and wear that outfit, and also that's where all the photos are taken for the social media. If you go on someone's social media, 9 times out of 10, if they're wearing a t-shirt in a gym, it's under a hoodie or it's been sweated on or whatever, you're not really looking at it like. Whereas if people go for a night out and they're wearing a nice outfit, you'll take notice of that outfit, and people will post those pictures more often anyway. So just as like a byproduct of them wearing the outfit out, it will then get put on their social media, and it's out there more. So with the price point and the quality of the materials, I was already trying to position it to be like a brand that you'd wear on a night out. But I realised that with the big logo and the way I was promoting it, it wasn't really in line with what was in my head of how I wanted it to be perceived. So I decided to, before the brand got too big and too known and it was still not in any shops, I knew that I could kind of remodel it and rebrand it.
Pivot.
So I wanted to keep the name because I like the name anyway, and it meant something, and there was obviously we spoke about like high caliber, quality, merit, distinction. It wasn't just like I know a lot of companies just go, oh, we'll add London on the end or couture on the end, and they just
London.
The name's got no meaning. But this brand, the name did have a meaning. So I was like, I'm not changing the name, but I want to change the look of the brand. So in 2000, the brand's at like 2 phases. So although it's 5 years old, financially we're like 18 months old because of the stock gaps we've had where we haven't had stock, or where we've done this rebrand.
Yes, so just on that then, like, how, you obviously mentioned it to me off camera, but how involved were you? Like, when did you go full time? Like, when was it at a point where you were thinking about going full time? Obviously, you mentioned just then, pretty much 18 months out of 5 years were you properly selling. Yeah,
so there was a period of time where I left work for 6 months and went full time in the brand in like 2019.
Yeah.
But my factories weren't reliable enough to get stuff to me on time, and I was missing like 3-4 months with no stock, so there was no income for the brand. So I then
stock's so hard.
I'd go back to work, and I used to obviously do security, as we spoke about. My foster brother Greg, who the foster carers I lived at for 13 years, he's the exact same age as me by a couple of months, and we're best friends. We're like that. He was in traffic management, working on the motorways and stuff like that, and he said to me, I know you've quit work, and I didn't want to go back to doing security, because the big problem was with security, especially working in the Rolex shop, was you couldn't be on your phone. And Lloyd will watch this back and he'll laugh at this, but he used to come to me and he knew exactly what I was doing. He knew I was building the brand, so he never used to go mad at me. But obviously it's a £3 million showroom. You press a button to let people in, you can't be there on your phone, and there's a client stood outside waiting to spend 100 grand, and they're waiting for you to even notice them to let them in. Yeah. Which would sometimes happen if I wasn't looking up at them. I wouldn't even know they're there for a couple of seconds, because I'd be on my phone speaking to a factory, or, do you know what I mean, speaking to a photographer about a photo shoot. It was always work, but it was hard to work and run the business in security because you weren't allowed to be on your phone. And obviously it's an e-com brand, everything's done from my phone. So it was really hard to run the brand and work full-time in the job that I was doing. So when the brand started to get to a point, I mean, at one point I was bringing in like 10 bags of parcels that I'd packed overnight, just so on my lunch break, because I worked in the city centre, I'd go up to the Royal Mail, drop them all in. I had to like build a rapport with the Royal Mail workers, just so I didn't have to queue, because I used to miss getting back. I'd miss my whole lunch queuing, because you're in the city centre, it's busy as fuck. I'd queue, just about get in there, drop all my parcels off, miss my lunch, come back and do the rest of my shift. And it was getting to the point where it was like, I can't do this. So when the brand got really busy, I quit security. And the shop was very supportive. Like, I'm still friends with, I went to Barcelona with one of the lads from there. There's lads that have bought from the brand. The owner, the general manager, Lloyd, is a massive, mentor to me and supporter, and always checks in on me and messages me all the time. And words of encouragement and stuff like that. They knew that when I was on my phone at work, what it was for, but at the same time, they've got a store to run, and they've got, you know what I mean? So it was becoming a bit like, I can't do both here. So I left work for 6 months. But it was great when I had stock. I could pay myself a wage, but when I didn't have stock for 3-4 months because of suppliers being late or issues with, you know, with getting it over here and whatever like that. So my brother, Greg, he worked on the motorways, and he said, listen, on day shifts we're done by 12 o'clock. It's job and knock. Once the road's tarmacked, you can kind of go home. You're in the van, you can be on your phone, come and do this because you'll be able to do both. So I went back to work doing traffic management, which is all like, for layman terms, it's basically the blokes that close the motorway on a night time to tarmac. That's what I was doing, and traffic lights and stuff like that. And I was running the brand and working full time, but I could, because I could be on my phone as much as possible. Once we put the job out and close the road off, you're effectively just sat in the van waiting for the tarmackers to finish, and then you pull the cones off and the signs off, and the road's open, and you're back home in 5-6 hours. You do a 12-hour shift. It's done in 5 hours, job and knock. Once the road's ready to drive back on, you're back home. So I did both for a long time. I was working 7 days a week, and running the brand 7 days a week on my own. I only went full time when Paul Richardson, the Gymshark director, invested into the brand and gave me a good chunk of money to basically, he wanted my focus to be completely on the brand. So it was kind of, what number do I need to give you? Obviously, well, I'm buying half the company off you, but I also want you to be 100% free to focus on the brand, because that's when it's really going to grow, not when it's like a side hustle. So he put me in a position where I could leave work and not have to worry about bills or anything like that, or paying for my own lifestyle, and I could just focus on running the brand. And if we didn't have stock for 3-4 months because of new collections or whatever, or reorganising stuff and whatever, it wasn't an issue then, because that money was in the bank. So I went full time with the brand like 5-6 months ago, but I've always worked, apart from that period of time where I left for 6 months because I just couldn't do both with security. And I've always done everything.
Just going back a bit before then though, so in terms of like actually marketing, were you doing paid social? Was it all influencers all the time?
No, so obviously,
and how has that changed?
You got to like, when I rebranded and I basically decided I wanted to kind of be more premium and kind of come away from the big logo tattooed model thing, I stopped using influencers, and they didn't have the same impact they used to do. Once the algorithm came in, you wouldn't, you know. Yeah. I remember paying £1,000 to Alex Bowen.
Yeah, I worked with him as well.
And within 24 hours, I made $8,000 back off his discount code. Yeah. Because I gave him a discount code, and knew it was directly from him. Yeah. And 5, 6, 7, 8 posts later,
game's changed.
I do same £1,000, and I made £800 back. I was at a loss. Yeah, that was the difference. And it was just the reach that his photo got compared to the first time I used him was night and day difference. Yet he had 600,000 more followers. Yeah, but the post is not being shown to half of his audience because of the way the algorithm works. And if that post doesn't perform well in the first couple of minutes, it just limits the reach of it. Same with stories. If you post a story and if you give it an option where it's a yes or no, because of the engagement, it boosts up and it goes out to more people. But if you...
Oh, really? I didn't actually know that.
Yeah, so I spend that much time on Instagram, like I know all the tricks. And if you just post one photo instead of 5 photos, that will get more reach as well, because what it monitors is how much time people spend on the photos. Now, if you post one photo, people will look at one photo, but they ain't looking at 25 photos, are they? So the engagement drops, and what that tells Instagram is your other photos aren't interesting. We're gonna downgrade the reach. So you're better off just posting one. You know, if your brand's turning over millions and millions and millions anyway, it doesn't really matter too much. It's a very small thing. But if you're quite a small brand and you want to get as much reach as possible, you need to get them engaging with that first story, and like this or that. But you see brands do this or that. It's not because they want to do this or that. It's just because they're trying to get the engagement on that first post, so then the reach it goes out to more people. But Instagram as a whole, it's just terrible. Like the reach was shocking. So influencers you just naturally stopped using influencers because their performances were half, but they wouldn't budge on their price. And because their following's still going up sometimes, they're actually charging more, but the results are less. You know, some influencers were coming back to me and I was like, well, I've used your discount code, so obviously you put it in your caption so I know how many sales come from your story, from your post. And it's half of what I used to get, but you're double the price. So I feel like they didn't really catch on early enough to understand that if they probably would have worked with brands and kept their price in line with their performance, they probably would have got a lot more work. But
so did you pivot to paid social or anything then?
So then once I started to realise that, you know, the reach and the sales from celebrities wasn't what it used to be, I'd got speaking to a guy that used to from Australia. He used to run a lot of his own. He used to have like 4 or 5 brands, and he used to do drop shipping and stuff like that. And he was the kind of first person that spoke to me about Facebook ads, and he basically started running them for me. And that was the first time. That was 2018, 19 when I started to do Facebook ads, and then we obviously then did the relaunch in 2000, and we did a rebirth for the whole brand, and we couldn't use influencers no more because it's not in line with the way the brand looks to use tattooed models or to use MTV. You know, it's more based around the product, and I didn't want to use a big fancy celebrity model. I wanted to use someone that fits with the brand identity, and Facebook ads just went hand in hand with what our kind of brand mission was anyway. Now it's like, okay, we don't want to use people covered in tattoos because we're like a contemporary menswear label like Reese. So Facebook ads was perfect for us because it was like, right, we haven't got to just use people just to get the reach. We can actually make our brand look exactly how we want it to look.
And then just pay for the reach.
And then just pay for the reach through Facebook ads, and obviously email marketing and stuff like that, and SMS. We just did all that eventually, and just that was never gone back since. Not, you know, we had a lot of footballers buy from the brand. Coutinho bought from the brand.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a massive Liverpool fan. So,
yeah, same.
Oh yeah, that's good. So when I remember sat there one day on Shopify, and I just seen a sale come through, and I was like, Coutinho, and it had Melwood Training Ground, and I was like, fuck off, serious.
Yeah.
So there was an email there. I don't know if this is like a breach of fucking data protection, but I emailed. Well, it's not, is it? Because they've bought from the brand, and as a brand, you're effectively, if they've signed up for email marketing, you can reach out to them, can't you? So I've emailed them just saying, like, I assume this is like the Coutinho. It's going to Melwood, so the chances are, so I'm a massive Liverpool fan. Can we refund the order and send them out as a gift, and in return get a post? And then they came back, and it was actually his cousin that was ordering on behalf of him. Yeah. And he said, yeah, that'd be amazing.
I don't think the 50 quid t-shirt's going to dent his pocket either way.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? Fair. And that's the great thing about using footballers is they don't want money because they're multimillionaires. So they're not going to charge you like 500 quid for a post because they make that in a minute.
So Coutinho did a post?
So I've got screenshots of not just Coutinho. He'd end up snowballing onto loads of footballers. So Coutinho done me a post. I got a ton of followers from that.
Actual tagged?
Yeah, tagged post.
Fucking hell. That is decent.
But through that came Firmino. I've been in Firmino's house. He's got me tickets. I've been to games.
How'd that come about?
Coutinho posted.
But as in, how did you get in his house? Like you just
through speaking. So basically, we spoke loads, and he realised I was a Liverpool fan, and he said, "You want some tickets to come to a game?" So I went to Liverpool. First game I went to was Liverpool Man U. Shaqiri scored 3-1. Yeah. And he'd added. I didn't know he was going to do this, but he'd added in because you went to collect the tickets. And gave me 2 tickets for a friend. He'd put a VIP pass to go and meet the players after the player lounge, and he was in there. So obviously I went up to him, introduced myself. He didn't speak much English, but he knew who I was. You work out a way to kind of calibre judge. Oh, okay, amazing. Yeah, thank you very much for the clothing. Ridiculously humble. The South Americans, they like the difference between them and like British football is like. They've come from such humble beginnings that you giving them clothing is a big deal to them. Like, they don't realise that they're doing you the favour. Yeah. They would pay for it. Like, I used to get, like, Lanzini. I got stuff out to him, the West Ham player, and he was just buying stuff all the time. But he was like, I said, I will send you this stuff, because he was tagging me anyway, and he was just doing it. But because I'd already given him some stuff, like, 6 months ago, he was still buying stuff because he liked the stuff, and he was just tagging it off his own back. Yeah. Whereas, like, a British star... You'd message someone with the same amount of following as him, and they wouldn't even respond to you. Or like, and if I was going to do a post, it would have to be like on their terms, and just night and day difference between South Americans. So I kind of seen a bit of like a pattern there. So when Coutinho done the post for me, once I'd got that photo of him wearing my stuff, I then just chucked that photo into Moreno's DMs. He done me a signed shirt and a post. Firmino came through it. I got Otamendi from City, Lamella from Tottenham, Danilo from City.
Well, they all posted for free?
Yeah, you can check it all on tagged photos
for
free.
Did that make a big difference?
Massive difference. That's why I've got the following I've got, and it's why it would work as well is people know that they're not doing it for money. They don't need to, so it comes across really organic.
Yeah.
And
like they genuinely like it.
Genuine, because obviously like some influencers will do a post because they need the money. Yeah. And they don't really care about the brand. So many, like, you know, I remember Alex Bowen, he was doing post for Circular, and then 5 minutes later on his story he'd have his Rolex GMT on.
Yeah.
And he's just done a paid post for a watch, and he's took it off, put his own Rolex on. People see that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's where influencing really struggled, because people could see that this person doesn't actually give a shit about the product. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't, and that's at the end of the day. It's a paid service. You're paying them to promote the product. They've done their job, but it also helps if they like your product and they wear it. You know, I always used to try and work with influencers that I knew followed the brand already and genuinely liked the brand. One, because for my ego, it made me feel, I don't want to use an influencer that don't even follow my brand, because how can he tell other people to buy from this when he doesn't even take notice of it himself? It's people see through that bullshit. People aren't stupid and they see through it. So the good thing with the footballers were, if they didn't want to do it, they wouldn't do it because it's free. They just do it if they like the product, and they're happy to get it for free, more than happy to post it. So we started going down the route of like paid ads, but getting it on footballers. So I've got it on like that. So many footballers. I mean, I was speaking to you before off camera. We went up to the Old Firm game, Rangers Celtic.
Yeah. My
model's is English, but his dad's Glaswegian, and a lot of the Rangers and Celtic players used to buy the stuff. Once I started to get it on like Coutinho and Lanzini, footballers follow those footballers, obviously, so I'd get a lot of orders of footballers anyway, and I'm massively into my football, so I'd notice the name straight away. I'd know like that's a footballer. I'd then speak to them on Instagram and build up a rapport with them, and then stuff like that, and gift them stuff for posts. And that was another form of marketing to me, was them posting the brand and me gifting them stuff.
Yeah,
I'm massively into my football anyway, obviously, like, so Firmino, with multiple games I've been to for him, build up a rapport. He invited me to his house to drop the stuff off. Yeah. And
that's a proper delivery, that.
Yeah, and then through that, he invited me in and said, "Do you want some food?" And he's not the only player to have done that. James McLean, who was at West Brom, Wigan, me being in Birmingham, the first time I met him, he was at the Belfry, and then he rented a property, and he invited me into his property, and his brother was playing FIFA and that, and they made me a drink and whatever, and I sat chatting to him for ages and stuff, and because that you can tell pretty quick if someone actually likes football or if they're faking it. Well, they knew straight away that I was, you know, genuinely interested in football. So, you know, you can. They know that it's like when you're speaking to them through like social media, they can tell whether you actually like football, and that helps a little bit, I think. So I've built up good relationships, gone to loads of football games, you know, and that's been another avenue of marketing for us.
That's something I need to do more of. I did a bit of influence marketing in the past, like Alex Bowen, a bunch of Love Island guys way back in the day. Jay Alvarez was probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
Got no return.
I remember you saying he got no return. I've had a couple of them.
So now I'm just scared of it now, because I just don't feel like it works.
I think it's easy to find out who's genuine though. If you understand social media, and you see after an hour they're on 400 likes, and after 2 hours they're on 25,000 likes, you know they've bought the likes.
Yeah.
So you can tell the engaged profiles just if if you actually genuinely love social media and your brand, you'll already have like a level of understanding of who's legit. And that will narrow it down to a certain amount of people, and then there'll always be the one con artist in there that's got like a fraud following that won't get you the results you need.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take long to look through their social media and their following and their comments and their likes to understand who's actually got the legit audience, and then you narrow it down to 2 or 3 people you want to work with, and you should be okay based off of that. But you can get stung. I've got stung off. I'm not going to say their names on here because I don't want to mug them off or anything can say. But there's some people that have been absolutely shocking that have come back multiple times. I've stopped speaking to them and they're messaging me.
The risk is paying a big one that you think is going to work. Like with Jay Alvarez paying like 45 grand for 3 posts. Must have brought in like 4k. And I was like crying. And it's one of those ones you can't really know if it's going to work until you've done it. And you can obviously speak to other people, but if they've got different products, it's not. And also people don't really want to let on that, it performs really well, you know what I mean? Exactly. So, but yeah,
But that's the great thing about Facebook marketing is it's one, you can monitor the performance and you can scale.
Yeah, I've always just been so heavy on Instagram, especially with the new brand. Like, although I'm thinking I'm a bit too reliant on Instagram, so I'm trying to diversify. This
was my big problem because I knew everything about Instagram, and I'd built brands on Instagram. I'd sold brands on like built pages up people, and I'd done that as a money earner as well. I used to build people's profiles for them and stuff. And when Facebook come along, I just going back to like at school, if I'm not interested in something, I don't dive into it.
Yeah.
But with social media, I love it and I spend a lot of time on it, so I understand everything about it. Social media, like there's nothing you can catch me out on with Instagram, but with Facebook ads, my knowledge is limited. I understand it enough to have a conversation with people, but I wouldn't run it myself.
Yeah.
So I've always then been reliant on marketing companies to do them for me.
Yeah, I mean, I use an agency now. I used to do it myself, but definitely, I wouldn't know enough now.
The thing is, it changes so much. You've got to do it every day.
100%. I used to be in it for hours every day. Like,
you know, when I follow a few people, I follow a guy on YouTube called Ben Heath.
Oh yeah.
And he puts out a lot of really good content, and he's very frequent with it, like daily. And you can learn. We've got one of the things I did when Calibre got to a certain level is people would message me and ask if I'd help them set up clothing brands. And there's 3 brands that I've helped go from like nothing to like turning over like multiple 5-6 figure months, and they're established brands to now. So we've got like a thing called Hustle Hub on WhatsApp, and we use a lot of marketing companies, and rather than us all just use the same people, we go off and try different factories, try different marketing companies, try different packaging companies, get the best price, and we do a lot of networking that way. And one of the lads in the group had been burnt by quite a lot of marketing companies, and he ended up just doing it himself, and he got better results and got really good at himself and kind of really dived into it, and now he runs all of our ads. And the results, I mean, we've used some of the biggest marketing companies in the country, like massive companies that look after really, really big brands that turn over like 60-70 million a year, and they're some of them are the worst results. They're just terrible, and they put someone in charge who's just been employed, who spends like an hour a day on your ads, as opposed to having someone in-house who's spending 10 hours a day on your ads and understands the brand message and stuff like that. There are pros and cons to use a marketing company because they've obviously got other people's data and stuff like that, but we've almost got that ourselves. The fact that there's 3 of us, 4, well, there's like 4 of us now so we can see, like, if my ads, if for instance, if I wasn't doing many sales and I'm going, I wonder if it's the market, I'll know because how the others are doing. So we've got that data through 4 or 5 brands rather than just my own brand. And this guy now who's in our group, he does all of our ads. So it's quite lucky really that we're not actually reliant on a marketing company now.
Yeah.
Solely to do our ads for us. But scaling, as you really scale, you're going to need a marketing company. I feel, just to have that professional touch of one. Our guy is only really good with Facebook ads. You need TikTok, marketing. 100%. You need other avenues of expertise anyway.
You're really good at answering questions. I feel like I've not gone through any of the things I want to ask you.
Go on, go for it.
We don't have to quick fire them, but like, so fulfillment wise, how do you manage all that? You do it yourself, or you outsource that?
Did it all myself. And then obviously when Paul came on board,
I want to ask you about that next.
We'll go to that next. When Paul, one of the first things I said when I sat down to Paul was, he said, "What do you need to take Calibre to the next level?" I said, "To stop packing my own parcels." And
so you were doing it yourself?
I was doing it myself.
That. Yeah, right. I've actually never done that. I've always done 3PL.
Yeah, to be honest, because I'd never got like a massive
which is fucking expensive, though, by the way.
I just launched and just was like, I didn't know any other way other than packing myself, kind of thing, and it was just one of those. And sometimes I've worked hard rather than work smart, and I found out the hard way was an easy way to do this. And I've just kind of, I've always worked really hard, but sometimes you also, there's certain scenarios where it's like you need to offset stuff to free up to do other things. But that was one of the big things that was like tying me down was I was packing my own parcels, working full time, and my time actually spent on designing product and speaking to the factories was then like, a couple of hours a day.
Yeah.
So one of the first conversations that I had with Paul was, what do you need to do to take Calibre to the next level?
Yeah, so, all right.
Was get a fulfillment centre, so I've got one now.
How did that relationship come about then? Because obviously he's very well known.
Yeah.
Jim Sharp, loads of other stuff previously. I mean, I knew he was, obviously. Where's that come from?
So...
initially, and then I guess what was the process to working?
Yeah, so I knew of who he was just through just knowing everyone on Instagram with involved in e-com and stuff like that, and his attachment to Gymshark and stuff like that. I'll be honest, I didn't realise the level he was at when I first started speaking to him. I just thought he was at Gymshark and very high up, and that was basically, he was almost like a member of staff. I didn't realise that he'd been an entrepreneur and had multiple businesses and the success that he had when I first started speaking to him. I added him on Instagram, he added me back, and we hadn't spoken. And a couple of weeks later, I noticed I had an order come from Celeb, and it was a big order, so it just stuck out straight away. And it was his name, and it was going to Gymshark headquarters. So I messaged him and just saying, listen, thanks for that order, that's a massive order, like, really appreciate it, glad you like the stuff. He was like, yeah, mate, love the brand. And that we got speaking through that. And that's kind of how it happened. And then through speaking to him, I then kind of like, he had a link on his Instagram, and it was a link to an old podcast he'd done on YouTube, and it was him speaking to a guy about his background. So obviously he'd been involved at Birmingham at Border. He first started off in waste management, made a lot of money from that. He took over
old school industry.
Took over his dad's company, blew that up, sold it. He went to Birmingham Football Club. He was on the board of directors there. He'd owned All Saints. He got them out of administration.
He owned All Saints?
He owned All Saints. They were in administration.
Everyone asks where my shirts are from. Every single episode.
When I was,
every single shirt I've ever worn on this fucking podcast is All Saints. I have about 20 of them.
If you go back to all the lads in marine training, everyone used to just wear All Saints all the time. It was just like a thing that, it was just like, you could tell someone that had been in the military, because
best for shirts, in my opinion.
Tight, you know, those tight All Saints jumpers. And but massive brand, and I was very aware of All Saints. So when I realised that he'd owned All Saints, I was like, fucking hell. Like, okay, he's obviously, he's not just a fucking member of staff at Gymshark. So I watched that video, and he'd basically been at Birmingham on the board of directors. He'd had waste management companies. He'd been at All Saints, got them out of administration, sold them on, and then, in his own words, he was training at David Lloyd in Bromsgrove, met Ben, and was like a mentor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's how they met. So he's from Birmingham.
Yeah.
Paul is, obviously Ben is as well. They're from. Ben's from Bromsgrove, just outside of Birmingham. They were training at the same gym, and they would speak to Paul for advice on Gymshark, because they were still in the early stage of like 2014, but they were still turning over like 4 or 5 million a year, so they were doing really well. But they used to go to Paul for advice, and to cut a long story short, they ended up employing him full time to advise them on how to take that company to the next level.
Yeah. And
that's how Paul went into Gymshark. And then obviously they went from turning over 4 million a year to 200 million a year, 300 million a year, to obviously being valued at like 2 billion now. And so I was like, okay, like, he's not just a member of staff at Gymshark. He's effectively their director. Ben's the founder, but he employed Steve and Paul to basically run the company.
Yeah.
So we started speaking, and I just basically said to him, like, would you be up for having a conversation about investing into Celeb? And he was like, I'd love to. He said, yeah, I really like the brand. Let's have a chat. And he gave me like, and I'd met a few people in the past that had offered to invest, and I knew within like a couple of minutes that they wasn't right for the brand, things they would say. The thing that was different about Paul was, I'd sat down with other multimillionaires, and it was all about, they would tell me how we could make it better, because like Paul was very much like, what you've done is amazing, fair play, like, congratulations on what you've built, this could be something massive, like, keep doing what you're doing, kind of thing. Whereas when I'd met other investors, they were like, oh, we could change this, we could change that, we could go down, but have you looked at this, but have you looked at, yeah, but why not go into Foot Asylum? Because I said I didn't want to go into Foot Asylum. I was like, I've got this other vision of being like a Selfridges brand.
Yeah.
I said, and if I go into Foot Asylum, I'm never going to go into Selfridges, and I'll never be perceived that way. And they weren't on board with my vision, whereas he was straight away. And for someone as successful as him, he never once told me like anything I was saying was wrong. He was very humble, and he listened to everything I said, and he was like, okay, yeah, I'm interested. He said, I've got a lot on at the moment, and at the time I didn't realise he was buying Hera. He said, can I come back to you in the new year, because this was in November last year, and we'll speak more on it. So we met up in the new year again, and we'd kept in touch ever since, like phone calls, chatting and stuff like that. And basically he was like, okay, I just need to speak to he wanted to speak to his daughters first, because they'd acquired Hera at this point, and I think there was he wanted to invest in Caliber, but he was a bit worried that the brands would clash potentially further down the line. And he also didn't want to. He said to me, "I don't want to be so busy with them that I've got nothing for you, and I also don't want to also be so busy with this that I'm not helping my daughters when I need, you know, when they need me." He said, "So let me just run it by them and speak to them and make sure that, like, you know, let me get their opinion. Obviously, value their opinion." He said, "And let me just come back to you." And he came back to me, and he was like, "Right, let's go for it. Let's do it." Like, and that was it. He was on board. And to be fair as well, his daughters have, you know, they've spoke to me through social media, and we've spoke about meeting up and stuff like that, and they've been there to kind of give advice and stuff like that and help out. And it's still in the very early stages. We've obviously, the deal's done. We've bought a massive amount of stock that's due to arrive any moment at our fulfillment centre. We've moved into a fulfillment centre.
Good move.
The same one that they use for Hera.
Which one's that?
Core in Crewe.
I've heard of that.
Core
yeah.
Fulfillment. Yeah.
Probably emailed me.
Yeah.
So many these days.
To be fair, the guy who owns it's also called Paul. Really nice guy. Very switched on. I think he originally worked there as like a manager, and ended up he's now the owner of it. And they've expanded and stuff like that, and they're doing really well. To be fair, they're not global where they've got fulfillment centres like Amsterdam and stuff like that. They're still UK based.
Yeah.
So, you know, but Paul, when he initially went, when we did it, he said, "Oh, I use this fulfillment centre because Ash White was already here with Hera," and I basically went and met them, and I liked what I seen, and they were really nice people, so I didn't really feel like the need to move out, and we just stayed there. He said, "And we'll put you straight in there with them, and we'll use that one for you." And the good thing about it is as well, it's based in Crewe, which is 16 miles away from a house in Stoke-on-Trent. So I popped up there and had coffees with the owner and stuff like that, and had a look at the setup and stuff like that. And when my stuff does land, I can just fly up there, quality check, whatever, just be nosy and stuff on the process and that. And but it's still in the early stages, so until that stuff, you know, lands and everything's on the website, we won't really see the impact in terms of the scale of the brand in terms of what it's, you know, going to do now. Because our big problem before was we'd sell out after 2-3 weeks, and we'd never know what our proper month could be. And suppliers that I previously used, I didn't trust them enough to really go big and know that, okay, that's what I really need to order to last me 3 months. But if they fuck that up, I've got no more money left. Do you know what I mean? Or I've got not enough to rebuy that or take that hit. Do you know what I mean? So I was always buying like a safe amount just to make sure that, like, you know, it was enough to last us, like, in certain quantities we'd sell out within a couple of weeks, but in terms of the whole collection it would last us a couple of months. But it's really hard to scale because you can only sell what you've got.
Yeah.
You're not going to do £1 million a month if you've got, you know, 200 grand resale value in your stock. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, it's now we're in a position where we can buy as much as what I think the brand needs to really grow, and we can do the numbers that I feel like the brand can really do, and become a household name as such, and really kind of stamp our name on the industry.
So how does the setup look in terms of day to day? Like, do you have an office? You got a team?
I had an office, obviously marketing, freelanced to a marketing company. I do everything myself. Social media, photo shoots. There's nothing I don't do other than the marketing, the Facebook ads. That was done by a marketing company. I've used a few marketing companies. The one I most recently used, to be fair, I think you know the guy, Jason West.
Yeah, I do, yeah. A
really nice lad, but he's based in Middlesbrough, and the guy he used for his ads was in Australia.
That's a time zone problem.
I remember once
I've been there before.
I got an email back at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I said to Jason, "Fuck me, this guy's on it at 4 in the morning," and he was like, "Yeah, he's based in Australia." And I like to meet people who are like a big part of my brand. If you're running my ads, I want to be able to like get in front of you and talk to you. If you're on the other side of the world, it just feels a bit. And with Jason being based in Middlesbrough, we had a few meetings. It's a 4-hour drive and then a 4-hour drive back. It's 8 hours, so we couldn't really meet each other. And I'm thinking, I'm literally 50 minutes away from Manchester, where there is more marketing agencies and there is flipping hot dogs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I need to just bring everything in close. I already travel a lot to Birmingham for family. My model's based in Birmingham. The studio we use is based in Birmingham. I'm always travelling. I'm always on the road. So I was like, let me just bring things in closer and get a more local marketing company. And I started to speak to someone in Manchester, but then, to be fair, the guy that's in our group that I spoke about earlier has just been killing it for a lot of brands, and he's going to do it from now on as such. But Paul uses a big company for Hera, and that's potentially somewhere we're going to go next. but they're also looking to, I think, hire in-house for Hera at the moment. But I feel like this time next year we'll probably be using a proper marketing company to kind of do everything, like Klaviyo for emailing, Snapchat, TikTok, cover all the bases. So office, I had an office. I predominantly had an office because that's where all our stock was. And then once we went into a fulfillment centre, I was like, well, I'm paying a lot of money for an office here for space where I'm just sat with a laptop and a desk. It was more of a novelty thing. It was good to get out of the house, and because being at home and being on your laptop when you've got a 6-month-old baby. And
you got a baby?
Got a baby.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That is a combination.
So the office was like
I can't deal with this fucking sausage dog.
A safe haven.
No, having a baby.
Well, I feel like I've waited. I'm 31. Most of my friends had kids at like 23, 24, really? 19, 18. And I've dedicated
18.
I've dedicated like 10 years to.
It's an interesting one, that, isn't it? Because it's I mean, everyone each to their own, of course, but I think 18 is too young to have a kid. I mean, I know people that had kids at 18, because when you come from like a state school background, like I do, and a lot of people, it's just cultural differences, isn't it?
Massive cultural differences.
It is. You typically follow what your parents did.
A lot of people.
That's what I find.
In the areas that I'm from and stuff like that, like I didn't grow up in a fancy area or anything like that. I think just the natural thing to do is settle down, have kids, get a safe job. Yeah, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas
it's done.
It was always obviously I joined the Marines, so I was away from home straight away. Yeah, and then when I came out, I was on my arse because I wasn't planning to come out. I had to leave because of my shins, so I had no money, and I was always of the mindset, because of my upbringing, there is no way in a million years that I'm going to have a kid and not have no money. They're not going to catch the bus. They're not going to go to school with holes in their trainers. Like, when I have a child, I want to be set in life. So I'd already made up my mind from like a young age that I won't settle down or have kids or a family until I feel like I'm financially in a position where I can afford it, properly afford it. A lot of people will think affording it's having £1,000 in the bank. It's not. And I know what it's like to go to school, dress like shit and get bullied for it, and I'm not putting my kid through that. Do you know what I mean? Like, my mum put me in like Pocahontas trainers, right? Girls Pocahontas trainers, right? Got to school, some kid took the mickey out of me, ended up battering him, got suspended, and then she battered me for getting suspended, and it was her reason why I was in them trainers fighting in the first place. And so it was always on the forefront of my mind growing up that it's funny because business was never like on the horizon, but ambition was. Like, I wanted to go in the Marines and I wanted a career. I didn't want to just be a normal person, have a normal job, and I could have gone and joined a lot easier forces, but I was like, I'm going to go for the hardest one. And it was, so ambition's always been like, I've always wanted to achieve something in life. Had a chip on my shoulder where I'm like, I've had a massive chip on my shoulder, and there's years gone by where I wouldn't admit that to people, but I'm okay with that now. Like, I do feel like I've got a point to prove, and they're like, from the upbringing I've had, I was never meant to be successful, but that's only drove me on to kind of prove people wrong anyway, and it's kind of actually enhanced. I've used it as fuel, if you like, but it was always at the forefront of my mind to be successful. And I always kind of had this image in my head of, right, I'll have a nice car I'm gonna drive, a house, money in the bank, and a career before I have a child and before I have a missus. So I stayed single for like, I had a relationship at like 18, that went bad. Went in the Marines anyway, and then I was away from home, and I stayed single till I was 28 from 18. So I had 10 years of being single.
Well, I'm very single.
I travelled loads, you know what I mean, and had fun and stuff like that. But people were saying to me at 26, 27, when are you going to settle down? I was like, what do you mean?
At 26?
Yeah, when are you going to settle down? When are you going to have kids? When are you going to get married? You know, and I was like, when I'm a millionaire. Like, that was kind of my attitude. Like, I didn't say that out loud, but that was what I was thinking in my head. When I'm successful enough where, when my kid comes to me at 4 years of age and goes, Dad, I want to go on a snowboarding trip. Not 4, he's snowboarding at 4. Yeah. But when she's old enough to talk, and she goes, I want to go on a skiing trip or a snowboarding trip, I turn around and go, can't afford it. I never want to be that person that goes, we've got a budget or we've got to save to do stuff. I want to just be able to go, right, there's the money, let's do it. So in my head, you know, I had Caliber when I was 26, and I started dating my current partner when I was 28. We made it official when we was 29. So we've been together like 3-4 years, you know, officially. We've obviously had our child, Raya, who's now just gone 6 months, when I was 31, and she's 2 years older than me. She was 33. So I feel like, you know, she's not going to get 40 and start banging kids out. So you've got to do it at some point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so I feel like it's a good time. It's a good place. A lot's happened this last year, to be fair, without even without realising like quite big things. And similar to yourself, I do suffer with depression massively, and I think that I used to think I was unhappy because of my circumstances, and then when I achieved things in my life, I still felt exactly the same.
Yeah, that's the
way I can
realization point.
The way I can best describe depression for how it feels to me is some people are happy all the time and sad sometimes, whereas depression I feel like you're sad all the time and happy sometimes. And when I used to think it's circumstantial because I was skint, because I had to leave the Marines, because all my friends were driving nice cars and going to Ibiza, and I was only working weekends and didn't have much money, and I used to think this is why I feel the way I am. And then when I got my own house and Calibre was doing well, and I got into a good relationship and stuff, and obviously what Paul did was absolutely like life-changing really, and it was massive to me. And to be fair, probably the happiest day of my life when he rang me and said let's do it. Within about a week I felt exactly the same again. It was weird, and I had this money in my bank, and I had, you know, and I've got a nice car in my drive, and I've got a nice house, and I've travelled, and I've got a beautiful daughter. I still have the moments where I just feel like, but the one thing has been a massive difference is every morning I wake up, my daughter just laughs and giggles. She never cries. We put her to bed at 9. She doesn't wake up till 7:30, 8. And every morning she wakes up, she's instantly just smiling, laughing. She doesn't cry. So it's impossible to start your day bad, because when I look at her, it's like everyone says, oh, when you have children, like it change your life. But it's weird because everything I've done has been for myself and the chip on the shoulder, but now I'm doing it for her. It's like it's like a beast. Do you know what I mean? It's like, wow, I really can't let her down. But it's weird because I've had my own demons to battle and stuff like that, and I think a lot of it's to do with my upbringing and not having a mum or dad in my life. I met my dad when I was 22, and we've built up a good relationship now, but it's took a long time to get to that. But he's more like a friend rather than like a father figure. Like, I missed all those years of having like a dad on the sidelines when you score a goal or teaching you to shave and stuff like that. I never had any of that. I never had an older brother either, so I had to be my own role model, and do you know what I mean? So it's been going back to not wanting to feel different, being in care. I used to get offered counsellors all the time, and I thought, how am I fuck doing counselling? Because everyone looked at me like I'm a weirdo speaking to someone about my feelings. So I used to just put it off, and I never have had it. But I realised like 2-3 years ago that I probably need to talk to someone or whatever and have that conversation and whatever. But I've used a lot of what's happened to me as like a driving force to do what I've done. So I'm almost scared of not being depressed. And I think I don't think I've ever said that to anyone before, but I use it as almost like my fuel to like the way I feel. I'm like, right, I've got to achieve this to feel better, or I've got to like prove people wrong or whatever. And I feel like if everything's perfect in my life and I'm content, I won't want more. And it's the wanting more that makes me do what I do every day. So I almost don't want to be cured and go and get all the... It's I don't know if you understand what I mean by that.
Yeah, I do, yeah. I think
it's my badge of honour.
All of us are a bit fucking crazy that try and build things for ourselves. And, you know, you need some fucking force
would I do what I do now if I'd have had a normal upbringing with mum and dad? I know you have, and you've had a good upbringing. There'll be other reasons why you are the way you are, but I think to myself, if I'd have had that normal upbringing, I'd have gone on to be a plumber maybe. Or, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I feel like
my parents wanted me to be a lawyer, so yeah. I just knew that wasn't for me, do you know what I mean? Yeah. You know who you are. But I don't think you really have a choice. I think you think it's just I really enjoy what I do, and I enjoy being my own boss. I enjoy working on my brand, and I enjoy building it. I couldn't work for someone else on their time and ask permission to go and have a shit and stuff like that. It's just not me. Yeah.
I'm quite a combative person. Like I'm very strong-minded, and I know what I want to do, and I know what I don't want to do. And I feel like to get that freedom, I have to have financial security and be my own boss. Otherwise, if you're always asking for permission off, your boss and whatever, you haven't got a choice in life.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I'm obsessed with owning my own company and being successful, because when I want to go on holiday, I don't want to have to wait 6 months to go on holiday. I'll go when I want. Do you know what I mean? And I want that freedom. And more so than, and you'll know this, a lot of people think you set up businesses for money. It's not, because not really massively interested in materialistic things as such, because if you was, you wouldn't have a business, because every time it came time to spend money and speculate to accumulate, you just blow it on everything else. You actually have to be quite tight to own a business, and when all your friends are out drinking and spending and whatever, you actually go, well, I need to save this money to run that company. what I'm actually chasing is freedom, financial freedom. If I could live abroad and work from my laptop, that's my dream. And do you know what I mean?
Why can't you do that?
Well,
I guess you got a kid now. It's a bit different.
I've got a daughter now.
Because I was thinking this myself recently. I've been fucking sat in London the past 4 months. Granted, living in a nice flat, all this. I got mates here. Why am I not in Dubai or Bali? I'm going to Bali next week. But I used to be very nomadic. I mean, I still travel a lot, but a bit of me kind of had an awakening the other day, and I thought, I'm not really happy right now in winter. Like, I just don't want to fucking be in London when it's -5, and you know I could be anywhere.
The thing is, I think
obviously I get more work done. There is a balance, but
I travelled a lot. Like I used to go all around Europe, and I'm very spontaneous. Like I remember sitting there in my dad's living room on a Thursday and go, I've always wanted to go to Canada. Sat on my phone. I said I'll fly in 2 days.
Yeah, I've done that before.
And I just did it, and I used to do that quite a lot. And I used to go. I've gone loads of places on my own because I didn't have a core group of friends that were single. A lot of my friends had kids. A lot of my friends didn't have much money. They'd have to plan holidays, like save for it. I found, well, I'm never going to go anywhere if I'm waiting for them. So I just used to go on my own. And because I'm quite a lone wolf anyway, and quite like not massively social unless you're interested in the same things I am, I just used to fucking enjoy just my own peace and quiet, and just, if I went to go and see a place like, I don't know, the Colosseum, I'd just go and see it.
I did that.
I wouldn't
went
talk
to Italy
about
by
it.
myself.
I've always wanted to. Yeah, I went to Rome by myself. I've always wanted to go and see the Colosseum. So I
still want to go with a beautiful brunette, but that's waiting.
Well, it's funny thing is, it's a very datey place like Paris and that. So
I went to Florence by myself, which when my parents had a honeymoon. The whole time I'm thinking, when the fuck am I bringing a girl here?
A few of the lads from our watch shop went to Florence because they've got the Panerai headquarters there.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. I've seen the photos. It's beautiful. But a lot of my friends want to go to Ibiza every year. I'd rather go and stare at the Niagara Falls. I'm a weirdo. Like, I'd rather go and see the pyramids. Yeah. I know you like to go to Ibiza and party.
I'm definitely less of a partier than the other stuff, though. From
doing the doors for 8 years and seeing what people look like when they're drunk,
Italy or some shit,
it puts me off.
Yeah.
And if I'm going to be around drunk people, I have to get drunk, and I don't like being drunk because I like to be in control. And I've seen what happens to people who get smashed. So I haven't been drunk for like 10 years. So rather than go to Ibiza or like partying and stuff, I'd rather go sightseeing. My friends, especially when I was like 23, 24 doing that, weren't on that level. They are now. Yeah. I've been doing that for 10 years. Like, okay, Eiffel Tower, let's do it. Okay, Barcelona, let's go there. I want to go and see Messi play Nou Camp. Do you know what I mean? Okay, Rome, Belgium, like, and you know, America. Where I've been loads of places, but I'd go because I'm like, okay, I want to go and see the Colosseum. And my mates would be like, well, it's just a brick wall. It's just a brick green. What are you looking at when you get there?
Yeah.
They didn't get it. Do you know what I mean? They don't understand. So I just found it was easy just to go on my own. So I used to just go to a lot of places on my own. So my biggest thing was, I'd love to be able to build a business where I can just travel the world and it just ticks over. But obviously, because I was always packing the parcels, I was always restricted to doing that. With the fulfillment centre, it would be easy to do that. But I also feel like with fashion, you almost have to keep your finger on the pulse. Like if you're all the other side of the world in Australia, you won't know what the fashion trends are over here. You almost need to kind of like be around the brands that you're competing against. If you're the other side of the world, it's really hard to kind of like, and organising photo shoots, I'd have to get someone else to do the campaigns for me, and they wouldn't do it the way I'd want them to do it, and they wouldn't see the vision that I want them to do. Like, I want to do this cool video where our model's driving down to like a vineyard in an old classic Mercedes, gets out, throws a drink over it, sits at a table with a woman and drinks some wine. I've got all these visions in my head that I want to create, and I feel like it will only come exactly if I'm there orchestrating it. So if I'm the other side of the world and trying to tell someone through Skype how I want it to look, it won't look the same. And with my social media and content, I'm a bit of a control freak. Like I want complete control of how the brand looks, and I feel like I can't do that from the other side of the world. Yeah,
it's interesting. Got to figure it out.
So,
where do you see the brand in 5 years? What's next? Obviously, it's been a disjointed 5 years so far.
Yeah.
But now it sounds like you've got solid foundation.
Yeah. If I'd have looked back 5 years ago and said this, and you'd asked me the same thing, it wouldn't look exactly how it looks now. So I think it's really hard to look too far ahead. But the next goal is to have a full year of stock and really see what the brand's numbers will be with stock every month. And then my ultimate goal is to scale it to a point where it's turning like 10-20 million a year. Selfridges, Harvey Nichols, Browns, Choice, Harrods are knocking on the door for it to be stocked there. I've already had people from Selfridges buyers reach out and say they're watching the brand, they like the brand. So I know I'm on the right track. And to be in a position where I'm financially secure. We can all say what number that is to us, whether it's 5 million in the bank, 10 million in the bank, 20 million, 3 million, 2 million. It's different for everyone. I'd be happy being financially secure, being my own boss, employing my family to work for me. Do you know what I mean? Like my partner or whatever like that, and being able to do that, help my family financially, like retire my dad and stuff like that, give my brothers jobs and stuff like that. I really want to be able to do that to them. That's my goal for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, is to build a brand to a position where, one, it financially retires me and my kids, if you like, if it looks after them, it looks after my family, and I never have to worry about, you know, going back to work and stuff like that. And you know, that's the end goal. It's freedom, financial security.
You're not going back to work. Don't say that.
No,
I know.
Yeah, no,
never look back.
I think because of my upbringing as well, because there's not been a lot of security in my life. That's subconsciously what I'm chasing, is like, is the financial security of being set for life. And that's not 100 grand in the bank or 200 grand in the bank. It's not, because a nice house and a couple of cars and a couple of holidays, that's gone. Yeah. So straight away you're talking about $1 million. Well, if you're talking about $1 million, the company needs to turn over 5-6 million for that to be the profit. So you straight away you're talking about a company that's going to turn over 5-6 million, and then you might as well say 10 million then. So that's where I'm kind of looking to get to, is 10 million turnover company, and whether that happens in 2, 3, 4 years, but that's the goal. With having someone like Paul on board, there's no reason why we won't do that, because there's nothing that he's not really involved in that isn't absolutely smashing it and flying. Everything he's ever done in his life, not everything, because not everyone's got not success stories, but pretty much everything he touches in his life turns to success. And that's not by chance. It's because he's obviously very good at what he does, and he's very experienced, and he's very hardworking. And having him by my side, it just makes me feel a bit more at ease, as like having a mentor and stuff like that. So one of the big things I've done over the last year or 2 years is networked, and that's made a massive difference, because I used to keep myself to myself, and I used to always use this analogy that the brand's like a boat, and any wave of negativity will capsize it. So while it's still small, I don't want to like put myself to it, and any of my previous history or past or whatever, or anyone jealous or whatever would try and tarnish it, or ex-family and stuff like that. And as I've got older, I realise it doesn't really matter, but the bigger the brand's got, I've now looked at like a ship, and any wave of negativity just bounces off it as such. So one of the big things that I've done over the last like year, 2 years, is just networked, been around like-minded people, and that makes a massive difference. It's a cliche, but if you hang around with 5 idiots, you'll become the 6th.
Very, very, very true. If you hang around with 5
successful people, you'll become the 6th successful. It's not always guaranteed like that. You've got to obviously have something about you. But that's one of the things that I've done over the last year or so, is networked and been around like-minded people. It takes longer than I do it quite organically. Like, I don't just add someone and go, hi, this is me, like, who's your supplier, or can I come and meet you, can we hang out? Like, I just chat to them naturally, and through that I've probably got like 30 brand owners on my WhatsApp that I can just speak to at any given time, and phone them and stuff, and we can just chat for an hour or 2 hours. It's just happened naturally. And
definitely.
I actually get a really big kick out of helping people. So if I know they're struggling with like a packaging company, or they feel like they're getting ripped off, I'll just give them mine. And just doing stuff like that for people, it comes back anyway, because people were like, okay, I remember that, like if they've got something about them. And so that's been a big thing as well that I've done over the last year. Is just 2-3 years ago, I never would have spoke to you. I would never have come on a podcast or anything like that. Like that.
First podcast.
And sometimes I feel like you got the attitude, do you go on the podcast until you've made it? But then if you really think you're going to make it, it shouldn't make a difference, because why wait till you've
I've not made it, and I host a fucking podcast.
Well, you say that, but Neon Beach was turning over silly numbers. Like,
but it went wrong, didn't it?
But you've done it. Yeah,
I've been there a few times. I know how to scale stuff, I'm not a noob.
No, but you've had, Lamborghini?
Ferrari.
You've had Ferraris, so...
Yeah, I've had some nice cars.
I've not had a Ferrari, so...
Well, it's quite easy to... I mean, that's another topic. It's quite easy to look like you've got 20 million quid if you put a 25 grand deposit and finance a Ferrari, like me.
But even financing
I'm the most honest man on the internet. Yeah, you do. Yeah.
But some people will go, okay, I've got to achieve this before I go and do the podcast. But then, if you genuinely believe you're going to get there anyway, how nice would it be to look back and go...
That's why I fucking document my shit, innit?
My daughter's 6 months old. When she's 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years of age, I can go, that was Dad when he didn't have grey hair. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But like, why wait until I've become a multi-million? But previously, I would have said to myself, I've got no right going on a podcast speaking about anything until I've the brands,
Yeah.
the size of, I'm not going to say the right, competitor brands, but the size of those brands. But at the same time, I've also got a backstory that
definitely
is crazy. So there's definitely some value to it as well.
I'm meeting a girl in 40 minutes, so I'm gonna ask my last question.
Because I take it you're gonna cut that out.
No.
Okay.
I'm not cutting that out.
Okay.
That's the truth.
Fair one.
I feel like we could go on for like 3 hours because he's got a very good story. We'll probably have to do a part 2. We'll do a part 2 when you reach 10 million next year.
This is the thing I was saying to my missus. She was saying, what are you going to speak at? I said, it's weird because there's a reason of why I am the way I am that I feel is important to say. But then there's the brand story and the e-com story. So I feel like try and get as much in as possible to give some context of why I've done what I've done.
It's definitely one of the most interesting ones, I think. The most varied for sure. Because we could dive in.
There's more to it as well that I've had to just kind of there's no point with school and stuff like that and previous foster homes where there's
been a good Netflix series. This.
Oh mate, fucking hell. Well, if touch wood, I make it, then maybe one day.
Definitely.
I've already got the title for my book.
What is it?
From foster care to, it could be entrepreneur or millionaire. From foster care to entrepreneur.
Try to think one that rhymes. From foster to.
They both rhyme. Foster care to entrepreneur. Foster care to millionaire.
Foster care to billionaire. That's what we like. That's good. I like that. Right, final question.
Go on.
I ask everyone the same thing. You'll probably be able to give me a 20-minute answer, but try and refine it into 3.
I won't, because I've already tried to think about it on the drive down.
What, the question I asked?
The question you're going to ask now.
Well, 3 bits of advice to your 18-year-old self. Knowing what you know now, I guess you've got 13 years on that.
Network. I've always been a bit of a recluse, and I would never have gone and approached a bloke in a bar not wearing a nice suit and a Rolex. Now potentially I'd make sure I bump into him to have a conversation with him or network or whatever, and I understand the real importance of that, and 9 times out of 10 they're quite approachable and they're willing to talk to you and give you some advice and whatever. The 18-year-old me would never have had a conversation with Paul Richardson and never felt the self-worth to be able to sit in a room with him and offer him something and have a conversation with him. So the biggest advice that I could give, number one, to someone who's 18 is don't be scared to reach out to people who 9 times out of 10 you also need to have something to offer them. Like, you need to be able to network. You can't just be, have nothing to give back to them. If they ask you questions or whatever, you need to be a bit, on the same level to somewhat. But don't be scared to reach out and have a conversation with people who you want to aspire to be like, and who are doing what you want to be doing or currently doing. So that's definitely one thing that I used to avoid. I used to just keep myself to myself, and and there's people that found out that I owned Caliber 3-4 years after it was about, and they already knew about it and gone, bloody hell, so you're the guy that owns it. It used to be very, very secretive, like no one really knew. And customers used to say, oh, have you got, a profile I can add you on? Like, I've spent thousands with your brand, it'd be nice to just, and I'd be like, I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. But there's massive benefits from networking. Did you say 3?
Yeah. Be here all night, won't we? You can think of a million things.
Don't listen to friends' advice on, your friend. You'll never, very rarely will you go to school with people who are going to be your friends when you're in your 30s. Some people are very lucky and they have that and whatever, but the people that you're around aren't all necessarily your people. They're people you're with circumstantially because of your postcode and because you're in the same lessons with them at school. I feel like get out there and find who your real type of people. Do you know what I mean? And have similar tastes in you or whatever, but definitely the world's bigger than your postcode. A lot of people just kind of think, well, this is it, my friends are, all 5 of my friends are going to be apprentices at a plumbing company or whatever. That's what I'll do. Just broaden your horizons. So that's the second thing I'd say to people. Third, don't know, something cliche. Don't be scared to fail. Everyone fails.
Yeah.
And
I fail more than most people watching this podcast.
And most people who you think haven't failed are just hiding it. Do you know what I mean? They have failed, or and most people you think are smashing it behind closed doors, they're struggling. So don't be scared to fail. You don't have to broadcast your failures and tell everyone that you're struggling or whatever, but just
I do that too much. internet's most honest podcast.
I'm impulsive. That's why I don't have Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah.
Because I used to write statuses all the time, and I'd be like, I do a little bit of Instagram and stuff like that. Like I've been going crazy over the last week, saying, "Where's all the Messi haters now? Ronaldo better than Messi, having a laugh and stuff like that." And then I'll put it up after 5 minutes ago. Why have I done that? Like, it doesn't, But I'm impulsive like that. But I'm opinionated. So if I think something, I'll sometimes write about it.
Yeah.
But you are who you are at the end of the day. You shouldn't be ashamed of it. If that's what.
No, definitely.
If you're outspoken, then that's it. People will praise you for it once you're of a certain level. But when you're on the come up, people will go, But it's always the way. So at the end of the day, you can only be who you really are. And if you try and be something you're not, and this is probably coming back to that third point. If you try and be something you're not, and you get friends that way, eventually, like, it will come out further down the line anyway. You're better off just being yourself, and if those people don't like you for that, that's the best case scenario, rather than try and be something or pretend to be something just to make friends. And I think young people portray to be something that they're not, just to fit in or just to have a friendship group. And it's better just being yourself, and if those people don't like you for who you are, you'll find the people that you need to be around eventually anyway. So don't be afraid to be yourself. You don't need to portray or pretend to be someone else just to fit in a room.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's probably it. That's it. 3 things.
Sweet. On that bombshell, it's been a great episode.
You've got to shoot.
Well, yeah, we could make this a classic and go 3 hours probably. Super interesting story.
Yeah, it's there's
good to
there's
get
loads,
to know your story better.
There's loads, mate. Honestly.
But yeah, I'll link obviously Jason's brand. People probably know it anyway, but I always link him. Go check it out. Go spend $5,000 with him. Then you can invite him for fucking dinner like Firmino. Cheers for watching the pod. As always, subscribe. We're back on the weekly grind with the episodes properly this time. I was a hypocrite myself last year, saying an episode every week for a year. I did 48 instead of 52. But it's like hiatus. We're back on it now. So
of course.
See you in the next episode. Cheers for watching. Subscribe. Peace.